I have drawn the heavens for 61 years, and in all that time I have added more than I have ever erased. A cartographer's hand is a hand of addition. We find a star where the old charts showed only dark, and we set it down. We trace a current of dust no one had measured, and we ink its slow river across the page. We are men of the small green light and the long patience, and the galaxy, as we render it, grows fuller and brighter with every season we serve. That is the work. That is the pride of the work. To take the unknown and make it known, to give a name and a number to what was once only fear. But there is one quarter of the heavens we do not fill. There is one region of the chart that every cartographer of the Veshrani Guild is taught in his first season to leave blank. Not unfinished, not waiting. Blank. We are taught the shape of it before we are taught to ink a single star elsewhere. We are taught where its border runs, and we are taught the exact pressure of the stylus that draws that border, and then we are taught to lift the stylus and leave the whole of the inside white as bone. An apprentice who fills it, even by accident, even with a single stray mark, has his sheet burned in front of the guild and begins his training again from the first day. I have seen it done twice. I did not enjoy it either time, but I did not object, and I would not object now, and when my own season as keeper ends, I will burn the sheet of any apprentice who marks that quarter, exactly as my masters burned the sheets of mine. This is the story of why. I am old enough now to tell it, and tired enough, and I have come to believe the telling is part of the duty rather than a betrayal of it. A border that no one remembers the reason for is a border that someone, eventually, will cross out of curiosity. The reason must travel with the line. So I will set it down once here, in my own hand, and then I will seal it where the rest of the proof is sealed, and the next keeper may decide whether the galaxy is ready to read it. I do not think it will be. The galaxy is rarely ready for the things that keep it alive. My name is Oren Saul. I am the 11th keeper of the Forbidden Sheet, which is the oldest and the least spoken office of the Cartographers Guild. I have held it for 19 years. Before me there were 10, and the first of them began the blank quarter, and I will tell you about him in time. But first you must understand the room, because the room is where I have spent the better part of my life, and because the room is the closest thing the galaxy has to a temple of the thing we do not say. The chart room of the guild is carved into the cold heart of a dead moon, and it is the largest single chamber any of the bound species has ever cut from rock. You could lay 1,000 ships of the line across its floor and still have room to walk between them. The ceiling is the chart itself, the master sheet, the true map from which all the lesser maps of the lesser species are copied and sold and carried to war. It is not paper. It is a field of suspended light, 10,000 years in the building, every point of it placed by a cartographer's hand and verified by 3 more, and it hangs above you like a frozen storm of every fire in the sky. To stand beneath it is to feel the weight of the known. To walk its length is to walk the galaxy. We are a small and patient people, the Veshrani, and we have never built an empire, and we have never won a war, and we have outlasted every species that ever pitied us for it, because we sell the map, and the map is the one thing no fleet can sail without. I learned the floor of that room before I learned the names of my own cousins. I learned to read the ceiling the way other children learn to read a parent's face. And in the far quarter of it, past the dense bright weave of the charted sky, there is a region where the light simply stops, not fades, stops, a clean edge drawn by a hand far steadier than mine, and beyond that edge nothing. No stars, no currents, no names, a wound of white in the middle of all that fire. As a child I asked what was there, and I was told, in the flat voice the guild reserves for that question, that there was nothing there and that I was never to ask again. I asked again. I was a child. The master who answered the second time did not strike me, which surprised me, because the guild is not gentle with apprentices, and that question is the one question. He only knelt down to my height, and he looked at me with the old gray patience of a man who has drawn the heavens for a living, and he said, "There is nothing there that you will ever see, and you should pray to whatever you pray to that this remains true for the whole of your life." Then he stood and walked away, and I did not ask a third time for 30 years. I want to be precise about the kind of fear it was, because the bound species used the word fear for too many small things, and this was not a small thing. It was not the fear of a beast in the dark. We have no beasts. We are a quiet people on a quiet world, and we conquered our predators before we conquered our chemistry. It was not the fear of an enemy fleet, either, though I have known that fear, and it has its own taste. The blank quarter was a different order of dread entirely. It was the dread of a thing your elders refused to name in a culture that names everything. We are cartographers. To name is to master, to set down is to contain, and a Veshrani who will not write a thing down is a Veshrani who has met something he cannot master and knows it. The blank quarter was the one confession of helplessness in a discipline built entirely on the promise that nothing is beyond our reach. That is what the white meant. That is what it has always meant. Here, the most thorough people in the galaxy met something and put down their stylus and walked away. You will want to know what species lives in that quarter, and I will tell you, because the not telling is the part that has begun to feel like cowardice in my old age. The species is called, in their own tongue, human. We did not learn that word from them. We learned it from the records of the ones who tried to take their world, in the years before the quarter went blank, and I will come to that, because that is the whole of the matter. The humans themselves told us very little. In the entire history of contact between the bound galaxy and that single green world, the humans gave us exactly one thing freely of their own hand, and it is the gift that damns the memory of everyone who came after, and it is sealed in the vault below this room, and I have held it, and my hands shook. But I am ahead of myself. A cartographer learns to draw the border before he draws the inside. Let me draw the border first. The humans were not always blank on our chart. That is the first thing the young of the guild find hardest to believe, when they are finally old enough to be told the smaller part of the truth. For most of recorded contact, the human world sat on the master sheet like any other charted body, a single point of warm light in an unremarkable arm of the spiral, ringed by the usual marks a cartographer makes around an inhabited world: the population estimate, the technological tier, the trade index, the threat rating. The threat rating in those years was low. I have seen the old sheets. The humans were rated as a Tier 4 species, pre-stellar in their reach, bound to their own system, of interest mainly for their world's water and its odd biological wealth. A minor people, a green dot. The conquered that eventually moved against them did not even rate the operation as a war. They rated it as an acquisition. The Oltic conquered. You will not have heard the name because there is no one left to say it, and we do not teach it outside the guild, and even inside the guild we say it the way you say the name of a drowned man. The Oltic conquered was, in its day, the third greatest power among the bound species, an empire of 40 worlds and a fleet that could blacken a sky. They were not cruel by the standards of empires. They were efficient. They took worlds the way a tide takes a shore, slowly and without malice and without any possibility of refusal. And they had been doing it for 1100 years when they first measured the green world and found it wanting in defenses and rich in water, and decided, in the cold arithmetic of the acquisitive, that it would be theirs. I have read what survives of their deliberations. The guild holds copies because the guild holds copies of everything, because the holding of copies is the whole of our long, quiet power. The Oltic did not hate the humans. That is the part the young cannot fathom. There was no grievance, no insult, no ancient wrong. There was only a green world with shallow defenses and a hold full of empty cargo, and an empire that had never once been told no. They sent an envoy first, as was their custom, to deliver the terms of the acquisition and to record the response for their archives. It is the envoy's record that begins the true story, and it is the envoy's record that contains the gift, and it is the gift that I keep in the vault and that I will describe to you when my hands have steadied at the thought of it. The envoy was an Oltic of high rank named Tessulanve, and by every account he was a reasonable creature, as reasonable as any servant of an empire that does not know the word no. He went down to the green world expecting what he had found on 40 worlds before it, fear, then bargaining, then the slow gray acceptance of the inevitable. He carried the terms. He carried the maps the Oltic had bought from us, the maps that showed the green world as a Tier 4 dot ringed with the low threat rating, the maps that we drew, the maps that I will not absolve us of. And he met the humans, and he delivered the terms, and the humans did a thing that was not in the Oltic playbook for the acquisition of minor worlds. They listened, they were courteous, and then they gave him a gift to carry home. I have to stop here and tell you about the gift, because everything that follows is only the unfolding of the gift, and if you do not understand the gift you will think the rest of this is a story about a war, and it is not a story about a war. There was no war. That is the entire horror of it. There was an envoy and a gift, and then, in time, a blank quarter on the master chart of the heavens. No war at all. The gift was a seed. I want to be exact because the Oltic were exact, and their exactness is the reason we have the record. It was a single seed of a plant that grew on the human world, a fruiting plant of no great size or significance to them. They placed it in Tessulanve's hand, and they told him through the slow machine speech of early contact that it was a gift of their world to his, and that he was welcome to plant it, and that it would grow if he tended it, and that the fruit of it was good. That was all. A seed and an invitation to grow it. The humans seemed to find nothing strange in the giving. By the envoy's own record they offered it the way one offers a small kindness to a guest, almost absently, as a thing too ordinary to remark upon. Here, take this. It will grow if you tend it. The fruit is good. Tessulanve recorded his confusion plainly, and his confusion is the most human-shaped thing in the whole Oltic archive, because it is the confusion of a creature who has met generosity and cannot find the trap in it. He turned the seed over and over. He had it analyzed. It was, his scholars confirmed, exactly what the humans said it was. The seed of a fruiting plant, viable, ordinary, of modest nutritional interest, carrying nothing hidden, no weapon, no contagion, no device. A seed. The humans, facing an empire that had come to take their world, had answered the terms of their own conquest by handing the conqueror's envoy something small and living and good, and telling him it would grow if he tended it. The Oltic did not understand it. They were an acquisitive people, and to an acquisitive people a gift freely given is either a weakness or a trick, and they spent some time deciding which. In the end, their analysts concluded that it was weakness. A soft people, they wrote, a generous and undefended people, who answer the announcement of their conquest with fruit. The kind of people, they wrote, who would not resist. The kind of world, they concluded, that could be taken whole and intact, its biology and its water and its odd green wealth preserved for the conquered's use, with no need for the wasteful destruction a harder people would have forced. They upgraded the operation in their planning from acquisition to harvest. They were pleased. They had found, they believed, the rarest thing an empire can find, a rich world that would simply open its hand. And they planted the seed. This is the detail that the 11 keepers before me have all marked as the turning of it, and I mark it too because it is the place where the Oltic crossed from misunderstanding into the thing they could not return from. They took the human gift as a token of submission, and to seal the harvest they would soon take, they planted the seed on the conquered's capital world, in the high garden of their seat of government, as a symbol of the green world's coming surrender. It grew. Of course it grew. The humans had said it would grow if they tended it, and the Oltic, in their certainty, tended it well. It grew tall and it fruited, and the fruit was good, exactly as the humans had promised, and the Oltic ate of it and found it sweet, and they thought the matter settled, and they sent their fleet to harvest the world that had given them so soft a thing. I have stood beneath the master chart, and traced with my eye the path that fleet must have sailed. The old sheets still carry the lane, faint, never erased, because the guild does not erase the journeys of the dead even when it erases their destinations. The Oltic harvest fleet was a great thing, by the measure of those years. Not the whole of their strength, for they did not think they needed the whole of their strength against a world that gave away fruit, but a force sufficient to take and hold a Tier 4 system, to do the slow tidal work of acquisition, to fold a green dot into the body of an empire. It sailed for the human world in good order and full confidence, and it crossed the lane that our predecessors had charted, and it reached the edge of the human system, and it began, by the records the Oltic transmitted home, the routine work of the harvest. And then the records stop. I want to be careful here, because this is the place where every species that has heard even the smallest part of this story wants there to be a battle, and there is no battle in the record, and the absence of the battle is the thing that has kept the quarter blank for 900 years. The Oltic harvest fleet did not report an engagement. It did not report resistance. It did not call for reinforcement, or signal distress, or transmit the long, desperate logs that fleets transmit when they are dying and know it. We have those logs from other fleets, from other wars, and we know exactly what a dying fleet sounds like. The Oltic fleet sounded like none of it. It reported its arrival, in the calm, clipped manner of an empire about its routine business. It reported beginning the survey of the world it had come to take. And then, between one scheduled transmission and the next, it simply stopped reporting, the way a sound stops when a door is closed, and it was never heard from again, and not one ship of it ever crossed the charted lane back toward home. The conquered, of course, did not panic. Empires do not panic at a single silence. They assumed a fault, a storm, an interruption of the long relays, and they did the reasonable thing, the thing any power would do, the thing that began the unraveling. They sent a second fleet to find the first. A larger fleet this time, not because they feared the humans, but because the loss of an entire harvest force, however explained, demanded a response of weight. The second fleet sailed the charted lane. It reached the edge of the human system. It transmitted its arrival, calm and clipped, and it reported finding no trace of the first fleet, no wreckage, no debris field, no scatter of dead hulls, and that absence is the first place in the whole record where you can feel, in the clipped Oltic prose, the very edge of something beginning to go wrong. No wreckage. A fleet does not vanish without wreckage. A destroyed fleet leaves a field of dead metal that drifts for centuries. The second fleet found a clean and empty system where 100 ships should at least have left their bones, and it reported this absence in its calm, clipped manner. And then, between one scheduled transmission and the next, it stopped reporting too. 2 fleets, no wreckage, no bodies, no battle, no word. I have tried, across the 19 years of my keeping, to put myself inside the conquered's councils in the season that followed the second silence, and I find that I cannot, not fully, because I am of a people who write things down, and the Oltic in that season were doing the opposite. The record thins. That is the tell. An empire that documents everything begins here to document less, and a cartographer learns to read a thinning record the way a physician reads a falling pulse. The confident clip transmissions grow shorter. The analyses grow more careful, then stop being shared at all. Where the early Oltic prose is full of the cold pleasure of the acquisitive, the prose of this season is full of the small evasions of a people who have begun to be afraid and have not yet allowed themselves to say so, even in their own archives, even to themselves. They had lost 2 fleets to a Tier 4 world that gave away fruit, and the loss did not fit anything they knew, and so for a time they did what frightened powers do, which is to insist the loss must fit something they knew, and to act accordingly. They sent a third fleet, the largest yet. This time they sent it not to harvest and not to search, but to answer, with a force that, in the writing of their war council, was meant to render the question of the green world permanently closed. I have read the order that launched it. It is the last confident thing the Oltic ever wrote, and even in it, beneath the hard language, you can feel the question they were truly asking, which was not how do we take this world, but what is happening to our ships. The third fleet sailed the charted lane. By now the lane was a thing the Oltic feared to sail, and the writing of the crews who sailed it survives in fragments, and the fragments are not clipped or calm. The crews knew by then that no ship had returned from the green world, 2 fleets worth of the bound galaxy's finest, And they sailed it anyway because an empire that has never been told no cannot conceive of a world that will not eventually say yes. And a soldier of such an empire would rather sail into a silence than admit the silence cannot be filled. The Third Fleet reached the human system, and the Third Fleet was the one that broke the pattern, because the Third Fleet sent something home. Not a fleet, not a victory, not even a report in the proper sense. One ship returned. A single vessel of the Third Fleet crossed the charted lane back toward the conquered worlds alone, and it came in slow and wrong, and it would not answer the relays. And when the Oltic finally brought it to dock and forced its hull, they found that it was the only thing the green world chose to give back. I have the salvage record. I have read it more times than is good for me. There were no bodies on the ship. There was no damage to the ship. Every system functioned. The hold was full and the engines were sound and the lights still burned. And the crew was simply gone, all of them, every Oltic that had sailed in her, gone without a trace and without a mark save for one. One survivor. One Oltic of low rank found alive at the heart of the ship, unharmed, well-fed, and entirely unable or unwilling to say what had become of the rest. The conquered did to that survivor what frightened empires do to the bearers of news they cannot use. They questioned him, at length, by every means they had, and they had many, for an empire of 1100 years collects means the way the guild collects copies. And the survivor answered every question they asked, fully and without resistance, and his answers told them nothing, because his answers were all the same answer, and the answer was not what they wanted, and so they refused for a long time to hear it. He said the humans had let him go, that was all. He said the humans had taken the fleet. He did not say killed, he said taken, and the distinction is recorded with great care because the inquisitors pressed him on it and he would not yield it, and that they had chosen him, one of the lowest aboard, and put him on the ship and sent him home. When they asked why, he said, so that someone would tell you. When they asked, tell us what, he said, that you were warned and you came anyway, and now you know, and you are still welcome to stop. You are still welcome to stop. I want you to sit with that, the way I have sat with it, because it is the thing in this whole record that has kept me awake more nights than the vanishings. The humans did not threaten. They never threatened. From the first seed to the last returned ship, there is not one threat in the entire human side of this story. They offered a gift, and the offer was sincere. The seed grew, and the fruit was good. And when the empire that ate the fruit sent its fleets to take the orchard whole, the humans did not warn them away with fire, and did not bargain, and did not plead. They simply did not let the fleets come back. And then, when the empire had spent 3 fleets learning what the silence meant, the humans returned one creature, unharmed, to carry a single sentence. You were warned, and you are still welcome to stop. As though the whole of it, the seed and the silence and the vanishing of thousands, had been from the beginning an invitation that the Oltic kept declining. As though the door had stood open the entire time, and the humans had only been waiting, with the patience of a people who own the only orchard in the heavens, for the empire to understand that walking in was a choice and walking out was a choice, and they were free, at any moment, to make either one. The conquered could not hear it. I think now that no empire could have heard it, and that is the true reason the quarter is blank, but I am ahead of myself again. The conquered heard the survivor's sentence as a riddle, or a taunt, or the broken raving of a creature the humans had ruined, and they put him aside, and they did the last thing they ever did as a power among the bound species, which was to decide that a world which could unmake 3 fleets without a battle was not a world to be harvested but a world to be ended, and to gather, for the first time, the whole of their strength. The guild has the launch order for that final armada the way it has the seed, as the central proof of the whole matter, sealed, copied thrice, never shown. It is not a long order. By that season the Oltic had stopped writing long orders. It commits the entire fighting strength of the conquered, 40 worlds worth, 1100 years worth, to the unmaking of a single green dot in an unremarkable arm of the spiral. And at the bottom of it, where an Oltic order of that era would ordinarily carry the seals of the full war council, there is one seal missing. One member of the council, An old Oltic whose name I will not give because the giving of names is a privilege the Oltic forfeited, refused to seal it. The record of his refusal survives. He did not argue strategy. He did not question the strength of the armada. He wrote, instead, a single line, and it is the only line in the entire Oltic archive that any keeper of this sheet has ever copied out by hand and kept beside the chart. And I have it beside me now as I write this, in the first keeper's hand, and then in each keeper's after, 10 copies down to mine. A people that gives you a seed and tends nothing of yours, and lets your fleets walk in and does not let them walk out, and then sends one of your own home to say you are still welcome to stop. That is not a world you defeat. That is a world that has been letting you decide, this whole time, how it ends. They sealed the order without him. The armada sailed. And that is where I must set down the stylus for the night, because what the armada found and what the conquered became, and how the first keeper came to draw the border that I have spent my life defending, is the heavier half of the story, and an old hand tires, and the heavier half deserves a steady hand. I will tell it. I have come this far, and I will tell all of it. But know, before I rest, the shape of where it goes. There are 40 worlds in the spiral arm where the Oltic conquered stood, and on the master chart above me, every one of them is dark, and none of them is dark by accident, and the quarter beyond them is white not because we found nothing there, but because we found the one thing a people of the map cannot bear to set down, a border drawn by a hand that was not ours, around a world that asked us, gently and only once, to leave it be.